things, scheduling my own meetings, and just meeting the care team overall. I also feel like I'm not really in the loop with my healthcare providers as much as I was when I was younger. Um, so yeah, it was difficult. And my parents, they didn't really understand the transition phase as well. So yeah.
Okay, so for my transition, it was probably a little bit different than I think the others on the panel. Um, I am a military brat, so my healthcare was always provided by the military, and they have adolescent specialists who take care of kids with illnesses like sickle cell and stuff. However, they do not have adult specialists. So when I was about to turn 18, that meant I was going to have to find an adult doctor to now go and see out in the community, a civilian. And it was, I was very scared because, um, when you have a safety net pulled from under you, you kind of go through a free fall. And my parents did that too, went through that too. So, but luckily, and God bless, my aunt who was living in Washington at the time with us, she was seeing a doctor locally, and he did see people with sickle cell. Like, and so when it was time for me to transition, I went to the clinic to make I went and made the appointment and saw him, and we got to talking about sickle cell. So I went ahead and revealed who I was to him, and he was like, "Okay, I'm your doctor." He's like, "Oh my God, you're Laura's niece. Okay, I'm taking care of you. Don't worry about anything." Um, so that was a wonderful transition. Um, the other hard part transition was um, going to civilian hospitals. Now, I'm not saying I didn't get discriminated against in military hospitals, but not as much as I did civilian hospitals. So that was also something I had to catch up on too, is, like, oh, snap. And that's where I had really had to advocate for myself. So advocation is very important. You have to make sure you know your voice, and you have to make sure you're strong, because otherwise they will walk over you, you know. So
My transition's actually been pretty interesting because I've been going to see all children since I think up until I was 21, and then I did the whole transition to SCCA. I got some information about transition, but I wasn't hip to like, oh, I don't really have a doctor I can page when I go to the hospital so I can get in faster. So like the first time I went to UW, I believe I waited 8 hours, and at hour number 6, everybody was getting tested out. I did not care. But then when I moved to Kentucky, Lexington, it was just complete different. Like I had my providers at SCCA, but then when I got here, luckily for me, I stay right across from the Marquis Cancer Center. My dorms are literally right across the walk. So they set me up with a team. I have a whole team of hematologists and doctors and nurses and everybody that I need. So I'm still kind of getting set up out here. I've been out here for about 8 months now. I'm still getting set up. So it's a process. However, I had to get really, 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 really sick about 3 weeks ago to get this new treatment. So, or these new providers. So before I had about one provider, she's a nurse. And then after I went to the hospital, I had a scare, almost died, whatever. Came out, and then they provide all this stuff. So they have it. You just have to ask for it. But then you have to know what you're asking for. So you have to know you want a hematologist and a nurse and just everything. And it's just kind of like, okay, I wish there was a handbook of like, here's what you need when you transition. Like, here's the people that you should have on your team. And here's people that you really don't need, but you should probably have their numbers still. So I'm still learning it. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that y'all are all in kind of different processes in transition. And that was kind of intentional to think about. Question for you, Josie, or Maria, sorry. Forgive me. if you would have had that pamphlet and you were a teen, like a young adult, 18, and they gave you this pamphlet, or even to you, Layla or Kendra, think about, would you have used it if it was when you say pamphlet, would it need to be a paper? Would it have been better to be an app at this point? What would you have actually picked up and used if it was provided to you?
So I think a pamphlet would have worked for me. However, since there is a thing called My Chart that everything is put in My Chart, maybe if there's some type of checklist, like, did you get your hematologist yet? Did you get your sickle cell nurse yet? Did you find a someone who can meet with you when you don't have, and your hematologist is gone? Something that would have been forwarding. And then also kind of like because when I first went to Kentucky, I had to find a provider. There was no, like, people that I have in Seattle didn't really know about what providers were out here. So I literally had to go on like websites, was doing my research, reading people's whole biographies, where they went to school, what they specialized in. And so maybe just like an app or something where it's like, here's sickle cell providers, here's what they are specialized in, here's what they went to school, just because knowing their background doesn't help a lot, because some people have never worked with sickle cell patients. They're just not from an area where they have many, and they get put into an area where they have some, and it's like, they don't know. I had a doctor who put me on a Narcan drip to combat itching. So people just don't know what they're doing out here sometimes. And it's just like, doing my own research, I just had like a pencil, like, here's some doctors to check out. Somewhere to start would have been nice, because starting is just the hardest part, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Bria. Growing up, I didn't really use my phone. I didn't have a cell phone, so I would have preferred a pamphlet, but we're in different times now. So a app probably would be the best option. And all the information she just pointed out, I completely agree with. If I had a pamphlet with all of the providers' information, I would have felt a lot more comfortable with my transition, especially since I would be able to refer back to it and reach out to those providers and just have a better understanding of the whole process in general. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I feel so when I was going through at 18, um, about trying to figure out what I'm doing and stuff. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I probably would have had the book, but I don't think I probably would have taken it as seriously until something happened, or I probably wouldn't have necessarily looked at the app until maybe something bigger happened or whatever. So, but yeah, an app would have been like, now, of course, I would have been like, I feel like, yeah, if I had if we had a registry that said, like Beria said about, if when you go to a new location, if you have an illness or, and the different resources that um, the community can offer, because when you're a college student, you're worried about paying tuition and all of that stuff, and that's the extra stress alongside with the work you're doing and stuff like that. So if there's somewhere that says, okay, if you have special needs, I know some people with sickle cell don't want to be like, I'm not special needs, but if you have special needs and you need assistance, regardless if it's medical, financial, protection, it would be nice if there was something in place that schools can offer, as well as if you, like, when you move to a new city, you can go onto their website and see that city and what they have to offer, and they have guides and stuff like that. So if it was like in one of those, and every city had one of those in their own Facebook page to add, talk about what their resources are, I think that would have been, really helpful. And a side note, I actually can no longer take IV Benadryl, so I have to do the Narcan, just so you know. And it does work. It's very low dose, but it really does work with combating the itching. So I just want to point that out. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know if I would have at that age necessarily picked up and read the pamphlet, but I would have had it. I know that.
Awesome. Yeah, that's been the question a lot, is, making sure. So what I hear you say is making sure that these resources are available, but also understanding that you may not hit them until you need them. Right. I think, Maria, you were saying, you know, some of these things just got in place because you had a medical emergency that kind of forced these things to kind of get in place, because obviously you're also living your lives and doing your thing. The next question, again, if anyone has questions, you can throw your hand up or put it in the chat, or I'll keep going. Let me see what. Okay, thank you, John. The question on, and y'all have prepared for this, so I know this is not easy, but I wanted to make sure we get some very tangible things. And I want you to think about this question again, coming back to your teenage, young adult years, right? Is what are the top 3 things that you think transition has to include when you're thinking about moving from teenager to adult or young adult to adult? And what we want is your creative genius to also think about it in the sense of what would you really practically use? Because we don't want to create things, you know, in some ways we worked on transition program for the last few years and people weren't coming. And that was okay. Like that was something we had to learn. We had to, you know, not feel sorry for ourselves, but we had to accept it. So we want things that are relevant. But if you had to pick the top 3 things and make them relevant that you think folks would actually pick up and use in transition, what would you suggest?
So, so my my transition was kind of came out of me and my mom going through a hard time, basically, as some like Black people say, smelling your piss, you know, like I was like, I'm 18 and all that. So what my mom did though was she went and took me to HUD housing, Bremerton housing. And that is very important when you have sickle cell. Where are you going to live? You know, like what area do you want to live in? You know, does the area have the resources that you are going to need? You know, are you going to be living by yourself? You know, even if you're married and moving in with somebody or all of that, it's important, one, to know where you're going to live. You need to investigate the housing market, and you need to investigate, and you need to know how much you can save, you know, beforehand, before moving out. It is very important to show your children what it means to have responsibilities. So you need to make sure they have taken a money class so they know how to pay their rent and their other bills. You need to know, do they want to go to college? Okay, now if you're on assistant like SSI, then you will also be able to get schooling assistance, which is very important because you can't always make those dates. I lost my scholarship because of the hospital, you know, so you need to make sure housing, money, and transportation is in place for these things. And also, of course, the closest hospital that you can go to. But that's what I feel was like the most important thing: housing, money, and transportation.
Yeah, I could probably come back to the other 2, but right now I'm sorry, just a second. Maria, do you want to go really quick?
Got you. I think probably just a list of where the closest providers are to where your area is probably be super helpful, and just again with a little bit of a background about them. You said for school, like I don't know. Well, for me, I think also knowing where all the clinics are, not just hospitals, but like clinics, primary care physician offices. Because when I first got here, like I literally stay across from UK Chandler. UK Chandler has everything sickle cell related. However, everything that's not sickle cell related is like 3 miles, which out here is kind of far. 3 miles away, which you have to figure out bus routes and transportation and things like that. But also just having a support system, like knowing who in your close friend circles if push comes to shove, your parents are busy, your family's busy, they can take you to the hospital at any point. Like just having solid people in your corner probably is the most helpful.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can come back to the other two, but I think fear mongering is like really, really big for parents and children with sickle cell. I know my parents did not want me to get like leave outside of their sight. And it did instill fear in me about like maybe I can't do things on my own, or maybe I can't go to college, or maybe I can't, just like move out of state. And I think it's really important that there is a resource that we could talk to patients about these possibilities for us, because I'm doing it, Bria's doing it. I mean, I don't see why we have to consistently instill fear in people. It's in, just like Kendra said, it's important to know where you're living, transportation, the hospitals that you have close by. And it just would take a lot of research and talking to people. And so if there's a resource that could be a training to where everyone that is moving into adult care can go through go through some sort of training just to talk about those things, to build confidence and comfortability, then I think that would be really helpful as well.
Powerful stuff. I saw y'all doing some head nods, so I'm just wondering when Layla was just speaking to the fear mongering, and y'all know I am a parent, so I'm learning from this as well. You were nodding, and I just want to know what's your nod about? Where's your agreement there?
I was nodding because I have similar, like literally when I was like, oh, I want to go, I just wanted to move out of Seattle. I didn't care where I went. I was just like, I'm out, I'm done, have fun. And my mom was just like, no, what if you get sick? What if I can't come you? And I'm just like, girl, we go cross your bridge when we come to it. Like wherever you go, people are gonna get sick. You might get the flu, you might get COVID again, you might get a cold. You're gonna get sick. It's something that happens. And so it's like you can't sit there and live in a constant state of fear, because then you don't experience the things that you're supposed to experience. Like, I know I'm supposed to be out here. I'm going to school for nursing. I know exactly what I want to do. And it's like, you can't just sit here and be like, oh, but what if I get sick? What if you get sick? You go get sick back in Seattle, you might as well get sick in a new place, see a new hospital. Like, yeah, no, I really felt that, because even when I got sick last time, every time I get sick out here, my mom is looking at plane tickets. And I'm like, look, you gonna have to be okay with me being sick without you. I'm gonna have to be okay being sick without you, because you're not always gonna be here. And that's just the reality, I do think though, like going to the hospital by yourself before like you're in that transition phase is probably just a good first step, because that way then your parents will be like, oh, like she went by herself, and like it wasn't completely horrible. Because my mom was just like, even if I went to the hospital by myself, she would still pop up. And that just, I don't think helped her, and it didn't help me. So just doing it by yourself once and then going on from that. Because, the fear mongering, that makes people just sit. We're not supposed to sit.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree. You know, I mean, like I tell everybody, my mom's a helicopter mom. My dad's a helicopter dad. So when it was time, like when it was time for me to move out, when we realized I needed to get out to experience my time on my own, you know, I did try working, but I also had this fear of working, because for me, going through the military, since my dad retired, there's a clause in the military that if your doctor can provide information that if this child is not going to be able to take care of themselves, then they can then be ruled an incapacitated minor. And then that means all my medical care will fall on my father. And by retiring, I will still get his military assistance. So I still get his military assistance at 42. I get his job insurance at the shipyard. And then I also get state insurance. Now, with the military clause, if I show myself to be a person who can keep a job, who can hold down a job and take care of myself, I lose that. If I get married, I lose that. And the fear is kind of like the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Because as much as we want to love, we have husbands, we love them, oh my, they're down for us. They're human. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pick the right person for you the first time. So the fear for me was leaving all of that security, for something I'm not sure is even going to work out. So for me, that's what I struggle with is, do I really want to just be in a relationship? Do I want to get married? I knew I didn't want kids. At least I knew I didn't want to be a single parent. I'm not saying that it might not have happened. If I had gotten married and that's just how it worked out, then that's fine. I understood that. But I did not want to be a single parent with sickle cell by myself. And I knew that from a very young age. So that's where my fear, and I still have that fear of stepping out. So.
Thank you for your vulnerability there too, Kendra, of just admitting that you still carry fear. I think this is really helpful too, because what we sometimes don't think about is who else needs to be included in the transition process. We think of the person who has sickle cell, but what I also hear y'all saying is parents need to be included in this, and learning how to let you go, how to entrust you, how to build you up and empower you, not to make you afraid, but to help you to know that you can do this, whatever you so choose, with the right resources in place. And I think just coming back to those who are on this call, as you're preparing for transition day or preparing for transition programs, is remembering the other people who might also need help and support, especially caretakers, in how to equip you. That's really powerful. Before I just open up to an open mic, I know some people have to jump off right at 2:00. So what I want to do is I'm going to ask you all one question, and then we'll open it up. In the opening, if there are people on this call who just want to say something to this amazing panelist for choosing to be here, you can do that at that time. We want to make sure we give them honor. It's a privilege for you to share your stories, and so we don't take that lightly. But you can also ask any other questions you might have. You can also just say what you're taking away. If there's something that really hits you, and as you're leaving to go on to make impact in sickle cell, if there's something that you took away, is really helpful. Last question that folks really wanted to know was, what age do you think transition should actually begin? What age should we start talking about transitioning?
I honestly think the sooner the better, just so that everybody in the family, the patient, everybody should be on the same page about, it's going to happen at one point eventually, because you don't want to get there to where, because I transitioned later. I transitioned when I was about 21. So it's kind of like, okay, I already had my own apartment. I was living at the house at that time. Going to the hospital, doing all that was kind of hectic, just because I didn't live too far from my parents, but still trying to figure out, like, are you off? Are you free? I feel like had I done it earlier, I would have just had better knowledge to do it when I was officially on my own versus just going out on your own and doing it. So like, I know transition age is like, well, I think it's still 21. I'm not sure. But maybe starting just like getting people in the habit around 17, 18. I know it seems young, however, like it hits you fast. Like once you start transitioning, it's just a whole speedway, and then you're in adult care and you're like, oh my God, like I was just a child not so long ago. So I feel like the younger the better.
And you said about 17?
Yeah, about 17.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree, because honestly, I thought I was going to have the same doctor when I was younger. I was going to have the same doctor for the rest of my life. So the younger, the better. I think the age range should be around like 15 to up until 17. I think that's a great time to start preparing.
Awesome.
For me, what my mom did, and I think this is really smart, is when I hit about 13, she stopped coming into the doctor's office with me, because she was like, you're going to need to know how to relay to your doctor what is going on. I can't always be the voice for you. So she had me starting to go at 13 to help open up. And I think by doing that, that also helps a a kid, as they go through this, build confidence in expressing their needs to their doctor, which eventually helps express their needs to maybe their parents. You know, a lot of us sometimes try to shelter our parents. We don't want them to know we're in as much pain as we're in. And so we're like, oh no, I'm fine. But by making me talk to the doctor from 13 on, I think helped build my voice. And then when I was in the hospital and say something happened, I learned how to advocate for myself. So you need to make sure you teach your kids to speak their needs and concerns and more and and fears. And then that will help when they get ready to transition from um, you know, child care, being a child to the adult world. Because in the adult world, you're not always going to have somebody there to help relay what happened, you know.
Mm.
So it's important. So by making them talk to the doctor themselves, that helps build their inner confidence as well. It lets them know, oh, I can do this, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, y'all, thank you so much for being willing. I know this feels quick, but we're trying to make sure that we're getting folks to hear from people who have sickle cell. Your voice is important. Y'all know me. I love you very much, and I believe in each of you. You are brilliant, beautiful women. So thank you for sharing. I'm going to toss this off to the folks in the room by you can asking a question if you have a follow-up question, but also just giving some honor to these ladies who have spent time with us today. If there's something that you're taking away that you really appreciate it. So please feel free to come off mute and just share a bit.
Thank you so much, each one of you, for speaking your voice and doing this. I learned a lot, and I appreciate you and love you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kendra. Anyone else?
And say, you guys, this was incredibly generous to spend so much of your time today with us. And I think everything you mentioned is something to take away. I think specifically the housing and financial resources, it's so outside of our like little blinders as medical providers. We like think about insurance and, like the medical needs, but that is so like, if you don't have a place to live, if you're not sure where your next step into a new home is, like, how are you going to think about yourself, your medical care? Like, that's just, of course. And so that was really powerful. Just thank you. And also sending all the love your way. I love you guys. Thank you.
And as always, you guys are all so amazing. And I love that you have the strength and willingness to share such raw experiences and stories. I do have one strategy question, because clearly a lot needs to be done on the pediatric side, a lot needs to be done on the adult side. But one of the big questions that we often deal with is, and I'm not talking about any one of your stories in particular, but just in general, that we often see that people need to leave the pediatric world, but they say, oh, well, we just don't want to go to the adult world. So they may get information on a program, they may get appointments, but some just say, I'm not going until I need to go. What is it? Any ideas or suggestions of what the pediatric side and the adult side can do to sort of, I don't know, entice people to seek help, ahead of time as opposed to waiting? And again, everyone's different. Some jump on it super early, some wait till they have to. But for those that would prefer waiting, how do we, get those people to consider coming earlier?
So I was one of those people. You can at me next time better. It's okay. I feel like maybe have we done like a Zoom call with another provider, or just like somebody over at the adult clinic with your provider that you're used to, because I've been a vendor since I was a baby, and then I had to transition to somebody new, and I was like, I don't know who that is. He's not family. So maybe just having like an introductory like appointment, like, hey, like this is so and so over at Fred Hutch, wherever you decide to get care at. Let's just do a quick little Zoom meeting to see, just so I can introduce you to, we can talk about a few things. You can see if you like the vibe, if not. But also there's some people that like, shoot, like my little brother, you can push a bird at the nest, but if it go fall, it go fall. There's some people that you just can't push to do anything, and just knowing the difference between those two, because eventually when life kicks them, and it will, they will have to figure it out. Like you can't just sit here and be like, oh, I don't want to do it. You're eventually gonna have to figure it out. So I know it sounds harsh to say, but like some people do need that just extra, like, you got to do it. You got to do it for yourselves, or they'll never do it. But I think, yeah, maybe an introduction meeting, or just maybe like if there was like a generalized tour of like the facility, if they go like their friends, people that they know in the sickle cell community, hey, we're gonna go take you guys to Seattle Cancer Care Alliance, just so you could see what it looks like. Not even get an appointment, just see where you would go. Because I think that was one of my biggest things, is just, I don't know people. Well, I didn't know people. I worked there. But still, just, you don't know your provider. It's just meeting people. It's kind of hard. You've been people for your whole life, and now you're telling me I have to leave my family, get a new one. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's okay, though.
I get it. And clearly, it's not like there's ever going to be a single answer for everybody, right? I mean, our system needs to be able to adjust to many different styles, right, of patients and families.
Yeah.
Two things, one which we used to do, one which we've talked about. One is having joint visits where, initially it's the adult people coming to the pediatric program, and later it's the pediatric going to the adult. And the other is having mock visits, right? There are programs where they just bring people in and they just go in and meet with an adult provider and sort of simulate, what a real visit would be like.
Mm-hmm.
Are those things or other things like it some things that would be helpful?
Oh, yes, most definitely. Maybe like a partnership with local hematologists and the hospital, regular hospitals. Like we're doing a panel right now, like just get all of them and say, hey, we're holding this panel because we have some kids transitioning to adulthood. Will you come out and explain what, like she said, like an interview, what is it you are familiar with? If you're willing to take on sick people with sickle cell, one, what your clinic offers, what it's like, what the resources you guys have, as well as a tour of the adult hospital wards. Because, as a kid, in children's hospital and all that, we got spoiled. We have video games and Nintendo. As an adult, you don't, you have to bring your own entertainment, basically. So a lot of the kids don't want to give that up, because it's like, now you have to admit you're growing up. You know what I mean? Now you have to admit that you are no longer be able to do what you used to do as a kid, where you could just be there and play Nintendo, even if you weren't feeling good, and now you have to take responsibility with yourselves. Another thing I think is very important, and I'm sorry if this is morbid, but I remember when I was diagnosed at 6 months, the doctor told my dad to go ahead and start putting money away for my funeral. And they did, just, but they didn't, they're like, okay, you know what? We're all going to die or whatever, but burying someone is not cheap. So I think that's another resource that actually would be good, because what do you don't want your family to suffer, and you don't want them going to broke trying to bury you. So I think that would be another class that would be great too, is how do you handle end of life situations? And I know that's, so that's another transition, and that I think really needs to be handled too. So, but yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, a joint partnership with adult hospitals and the doctors, as well as the same thing with the hospitals.
Just to follow up through this is really helpful. How many, so you've been with this doctor all your life, you're in your teenage years, you know, how many appointments, just helping folks to have real tangible things. One appointment seems like too little. Like if you just had one appointment with the doc, that's great because it's better than nothing. But how many appointments, like if you were going in a transition for, you know, you're at 15, would seeing this new doctor once a year be helpful? Would you want to meet them at least like 4 times before you moved into adult care? That would make you feel like, okay, I'm at least a little comfortable. Yeah, I just was wondering like the range. And then the second question is, you know, just ideas around, we can also imagine outside of the box, like, would you be comfortable if you went and there was like a game night and they came, like it wasn't clinic, it wasn't clinical, or they came to adult retreat and you met there a couple of times, would that help bring comfortability? Or are you like, no, I don't want providers in the same space of where I'm kicking it?
Oh yeah, no, I think that would be great. And also for me, because I live so far away from Fred Hutch, you know, when I got referred there, you know, they know their stuff. And I was shocked. I was like, oh wow, you know, it was like, oh wow, these people really know what they're talking about. And my mom, even when I have a bad case here in Bremerton and we go up to see our review in Seattle, she's written everything that went bad in Bremerton. So she's not happy until she goes to the review from the feedback from Fred Hutchinson that, well, your doctor was pretty much right, you know, and all that. So for me, I go just about every 3 to 6 months to go to see the SEC or Fred Hutch doctors now. And we go over every little thing, and that helps make you comfortable. And now you guys have a new doctor that I'm going to be seeing. And so we had a Zoom meeting, and that was nice. But I'm more of an in-person type deal. And so I need to see you. I need to look in your face really and see if you mean what you say, because I believe that people will show you who they are better in person than they can on, say, a phone or TV, because they're distracted more sometimes when they're on the app, because yeah, they want to help you, but they also done booked another appointment or whatever. But when you're in person, you can sit there and you can judge for yourself, because you know when someone's not right. Let's just face it. We all end up learning that instinct real quick, you know. So I think every 3 to 6 months would be great. A partnership. I saw someone just said camp. Yeah, bring the adults to camp, the adult doctors to camp. That would be good.
Yeah. All right, you're getting head nods, so we're agreeing. I want to really respect time, and we have 2 minutes. I always believe if you can end a meeting early, you should. So I want to give you back your extra 2 minutes. Thank you to this panel. Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much for sharing time with us. For those who, for our next meeting, it looks like we're on for May 22nd. I just put in the chat topics. So if you have a topic you really want us to hit up, we can continue in transition and have more conversation around transition. But if there's other topics that you really want to make sure that we are covering, please put that in the chat or email us. And we will begin to make an agenda, and we'll see you May 22nd. Ladies, much respect. We're so happy that you did transition and you out there doing your thing. So keep doing it. We'll be checking in on you. All right. Bye, everyone.
God bless.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
Yes.
Foxy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Natasha. Oh, she's gone. Oh, y'all did it. That was beautiful. Layla, I hope you feel better, love.
Thank you.
All right. Check in with us. Let us know if you need anything. Okay. All right, babe.